Welcome to Rand.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. It means a lot. My name is Zoe Russell, and I'm the Assistant Executive Director of RAND. And I've just got a few matters, quick business, and then I'll turn it over to Ann Lee to say a few words, and then she will introduce her son Richard Lee to educate us all about really where he's been working on this for so many years. This moment, you know, where John and I have come on board, really helping out with RAMP since January. There's so many people who've done so much work to get marijuana into the general debate before us. So, I mean, so much groundwork has been laid, and we're really at this swell of a moment. We should take advantage of it in Texas. So I just want to say a few notes about the news. Recently, just last week in Harris County, the Democratic candidate for District Attorney, Kim Ogg, had a press conference, and she wants to enact a program, if she were elected, the GRACE program, and also cite and release. So cite and release is basically if you are stopped and you have possession of 0 to 4 ounces of marijuana, and it's obvious to the officer that it's underneath 4 ounces, then they will write you a citation, and then you appear later to be in front of the court for your Class B misdemeanor. It's still a Class B misdemeanor. So the other side of her program is that now people would not get jail time. They wouldn't have any chance of jail time, but they would have the plea option to have 2 days of community service. So this would be a huge change from what they do in Harris County now, where there's over 12,000 arrests each year for misdemeanor marijuana possession. So immediately after that, Devin Anderson came out with a statement of her own that she's working with the chief of police and she's working with the sheriff's office to introduce a marijuana diversion pilot program herself. So I think one really good thing that RAMP could work on right in the very present moment is just reach out to Devin Anderson's office, email, call, or visit and say, I am a conservative voter, Republican voter, and I think you're really going in the right direction with a diversion program for marijuana arrests. We're not doing anything to fight this with more arrests and giving young people criminal records for the rest of their lives, and this is the right direction, and I want to see you go in this direction. And then ask her if she's willing to divulge any of what their pilot program consists of, because we don't know what it consists of yet. So, other piece of news is that next week there is a rally in Georgetown, Texas for the teenager Jacob Lavoro. And Jacob is the 19-year-old kid who has 0 prior record, but he was in his apartment allegedly making hash oil brownies. And the difference between hash oil and marijuana is it's a concentrated form of marijuana, so it's a penalty group 2 substance. So you have to have much less of that substance in your possession to be facing a first-degree felony, which is what he's facing, which is up to 99 years in prison. So he's facing life for special brownies, right? And the crazy thing is they're weighing the entirety of the brownies, so that's 1.45 pounds. And it's not, I think it's even like the container that the brownies were in. They went as far as that because the law says that aggregates and any kind of mixture of your controlled substance can be weighed and included. So there was a previous rally for his first court appearance, and definitely the courthouse felt the presence of the group there. So we need to stay on top of them because the search of his place was actually conducted. Basically, his lawyers were trying to get the evidence tossed out because the search was invalid. So I'm gonna go on next Wednesday, and if anyone would like to go, then maybe we can talk about it. August 6th, Georgetown Courthouse. And,
where's that?
Georgetown Courthouse. Georgetown, Texas. Sorry, Georgetown. Small town, I don't know where they are. Yeah, it's the same place where, the Michael Morton case happened. So that's Williamson County. The other thing I would really like everybody, I urge y'all to become RAMP members, and I can sign you up to become a RAMP member tonight. And the other thing we have going on is a money bond for the month of July. So tomorrow is the last day of our money bond, and we're really trying to raise money to send John and I to LPAC. We think that LPAC would be a great conference to meet people at the national level, hopefully public figures that maybe want to associate themselves with RAMP and give us some clout and help us get some media coverage and some fundraising opportunities. So we think LPAC would be a great venue for that. And then overall, we're just trying to raise money because all these little things cost money. And we're going to try to do a lot of it bare bones style with email and just good messaging and the truth, because that's on our side. But some of the other stuff, the printing materials, mailing, things like that, t-shirt printing, all of that costs a little bit of money. So if anyone could donate, I'll take a donation here. You can go on our website. We very much appreciate that. And let's see, there's a Houston Normal event next month, the end of August, August 28th at Dan Electro's. They're going to have a big party, and our political director, John Walker, will be speaking there on behalf of Houston Young Republicans, of which he is president, and so that'll be a great event as well. So now I want to turn it over to Miss Ann Lee. Mrs. Ann Lee. And Bob are co-founders of RAMP. They founded it in 2012, and everybody in County Republican circles knows Ann and knows RAMP. So we've had so much progress made before we ever hopped into this, and we love being associated with Ann and working on this team with her. So I'm just going to say, keep sitting.
I hardly know where to start. I'm so grateful. Let me start at the beginning. In 1990, Richard had his accident made him, gave him the wheelchair as his mode of transportation. And in August of 1990, at our house, and I remember this very well, he looked at us and he said, "Mom and Dad, marijuana is good for me." Boy, it was something I did not want to hear. That was it. I hate to say that I have been a very obedient citizen, believing all the lies the government has put out about me. And I've been quoted saying it was a weed of the devil. But even if it were bad for you, why wasn't I not smart enough to realize that the prohibition was not paying interest? It only took them 13 years with alcohol to realize, and one of the big parallels I draw is that they felt down there with alcohol prohibition, kids could get alcohol very easy. Because what licenses little people need? Fast forward to today, what licenses does drug dealers need to sell your kid marijuana, or to make your kid a deal on the high school campus? And believe me, it's there. It is everywhere. It is there. But the first thing that really hit me was when, after, he had some stories about what happened then. This is a man of great integrity. Richard always marched to a different drum beat, but he wouldn't lie his way out of trouble. He's a man of great integrity. We had to listen to him. We had to pray an awful lot, which is what I believe in all the time. And then we had to do the research. And when I found the truth of how good marijuana is for so many things, not just to help him with spasticity, But there's so many things. Oh, I guess I became somewhat of a cynic. And that began the journey that we're still on. So as I said, it started in 1990. In 1995, California approved medical marijuana. Richard, 96. And that's where this medical marijuana came from, and I've been wearing it ever since. And he moved to Oakland in his wheelchair, not knowing too much, and became incredibly successful. The city of Oakland really likes this young man. He was good for Oakland. He turned the coin Oaksterdam, Oakland, Amsterdam, started Oaksterdam University, which became the trade school for people who wanted to be in the marijuana business. What he kept saying was so true. We need to treat marijuana like we treat alcohol. Tax, control, regulate. I got it right? Tax, control, and regulate. And so that's what has been, the goal. My first goal was just, I thought people who need it should be able to get it legally. It's just really a functional fact. That we have these vets who have found that marijuana is so good for PTSD and they can't get it legally in Texas. We should hang our heads in shame in Texas over that fact, nothing else. We should hang our heads in the fact that we've had a family move to Colorado to get marijuana for their child whose seizures can be controlled with marijuana, not with all the other medicines that the doctors and the pharmaceuticals want you to use. There are so many cases of this. And we have here two young women that I am so proud of, and I'm going to forget their names, but I know what they stand for. They started Mamas. Mothers Advocating Medical Marijuana for Autism. Stand up, you two. To be with us tonight, I'm so grateful. Well, it's great to be in a place where we're all on the same page, aren't we? It is time to repeal drug prohibition. And the quote that I have just seen recently, which really, I think, said it so well, and it's from former Superior Judge from Orange County, California, Judge James Gray. Drug prohibition is the biggest mistake in our country, second only to slavery. Think about that. Drug prohibition gave us the new Jim Crow. I grew up with the old Jim Crow. Old Jim Crow, in my Catholic vernacular, was a mortal sin. It's a mortal sin what was done with the old Jim Crow. It was done, and I would have to say, and I use a little analogy, our country was born with the original sin, which is what I get from my Catholic Church. And we had that until Abe Lincoln, Republican, gave us the Emancipation Proclamation, right? Then what happened? In the South. And who? The Democrats in the South. The white Democrats in the South. Frank brought about the segregation laws. And what are they called? Jim Crow. It took an amazing amount of courage to do something about Jim Crow in the South. We have to remember with great awe and respect Dr. Martin Luther King. And there were so many. When you read about it, there were so many who came south. Young whites who came south who were killed out there trying to encourage blacks to be able to vote. And it's kind of Lisa Rice said, it wasn't the Republicans who told her father he couldn't vote. It was the Democrats. And I have just recently been watching 42. The story of Jackie Robinson. I was alive when that was happening, and I did not realize all. Of course, we were having babies and children and so on, but I did not realize the horrible things that that young man, that beautiful young man, went through to bring back to integrate baseball. I'm digressing now. I think I've been here long enough. My whole purpose is, I have two things that really drive it. One is the injustice. The greater the injustice, the louder we must speak, and the more passionately we must live. And in my lifetime, we've had no greater injustice than the original Jim Crow. And now we have a new Jim Crow, Kurt, as a result of the drug war. So people need to be able to use the medicine that's best for them, and we need to be able to keep people from being arrested and in prison for marijuana, for a plant. So that's my story. And if there's anything else, if ever I can help anywhere that I can afford to go and have the time to go, I'll be happy to go and tell my story. Because I believe I think that's what why the Lord has kept me alive and well, thinking and driving in '84. I think that's exactly my mission. My husband shares this mission. And so that's what we're here for. Oh, look. This is one of the, Jerry
Let's hear for Jerry Epstein.
We realized that marijuana was good and all that was wrong about the drug war. We found out there was a group called DPFT, Drug Policy Forum of Texas. And Jerry Epstein was one of the first person that I met. And, you know, I had a personal reason for getting involved. But there were people like Jerry who were involved who did not have this personal reason. And I really salute you and I'm so grateful, Jerry, for the path that you have laid for us here. Thank you for being here, Jerry. Anyway, I look around and there's so many people to which I owe so much. Bob and I thought of Brand 2 years ago. We didn't do much with it. But this past year, some wonderful young people, John Ball, Jason Miller, Zoe Russell in particular. And there are others, but those are the three. What they have done with Rand, to me, is unbelievable. They have given it an energy and a confidence that I can only dream about. Hope to follow and do something with it. So anyway, that's my story. If ever I can help tell it anywhere, I'll be there. And now, here's Richard.
Thank you for coming. Really honored that so many people came to hear me talk. Hopefully I won't disappoint. I'm not big on giving speeches, and I really don't like to talk about myself. So I'm going to do one of my classes that's current events, which kind of an easy thing to do. I just go over some of the most recent news and comment on it. And this week we have a lot of great news. But before I do that, before I forget, I want to pick up on something Mom made me think about with your quote about the greater the injustice is, the more we have to do to fight it. And that is to pick up on this idea that cannabis prohibition is worse than just a bad policy. It's worse than just futile and counterproductive. It's actually unjust. There are a lot of people in prison who shouldn't be there. There's a lot of people with medical conditions who are dying or otherwise suffering who shouldn't be. And to pick up on that idea, or kind of related to that idea, is the idea of jury immunity, what a lot of people call, or lawyers like to call, jury nullification, which to me is not the best term for it. Jury immunity is, the basic idea behind jury immunity is that jurors cannot be punished for their verdicts. This is a basic common law, it's basic common sense. I shouldn't get into too much into the speech, because basically I was just going to plug a event that we're having in 2 weeks. Can you help me out when it is?
Yes, it is. Pachyderm is a group, it's a Republican co-ed group, men and women. And the downtown Pachyderm meets at the Spaghetti Warehouse every Thursday. And we're having a program on August the 14th at noon at downtown Spaghetti Warehouse with a man by the name of Clay Conrad.
He wrote the book on it.
He wrote the book. And he's going to be there, and Rich is going to be there.
Well, I've been a long time proponent of this, so look up, get more information about that.
And it is happening. We know it's happening. I had a note from Ann Clutterbuck, who used to go to city council. She was on jury duty doing Bird Iron, and it was a marijuana possession. She said, Ann, I was just stunned. And so many of them were older white people. They did not think it was wrong. They did not think it was wrong that people possess marijuana.
But the question is whether these juries or individual jurors will stand up to the court when the judge says you must follow the law as I give it to you. And it gets worse than that, all the ways that the court system has evolved over the years to try to prevent unjust laws, juries from acquitting defendants of breaking unjust laws. Starts with voir dire, as you say, where they weed out the jury pool is carefully screened and stacked with people who are in favor of prohibition. So anyway, if you want to hear, I'm going to speak at that, and Clay Conrad is going to speak more of that, and it's something I've been a big proponent of for many years, and I think it's a very interesting topic. So before I forgot, I wanted to basically say a few words about that. All right, let's talk about the New York Times, huh? Everybody aware of what happened last Sunday? That the New York Times came out for ending cannabis prohibition. And what's really been amazing is how every other newspaper seems to have made a story out of it. Everybody else has been picking up on it. All the media has been picking up on it. And but before I do that, I'll start with this story that I just got, which I think is it's a great kind of ironic, humorous story. This wasn't such a, like I said, a sad story of 20 million people or so being arrested and put in prison over the years for cannabis. The headline to this story from 9 News in Brush, Colorado is "Businessman wants to turn old prison into marijuana facility." Does that say it all? We're going to lock up the plants finally instead of the people. You know, we've often said that the war on cannabis is really war on people, not on cannabis. And, but I think that's an awesome headline with the swords to plowshares kind of idea. And there have been some stories about small towns in Texas and other states actually going bankrupt because they spent a lot of money building prisons that, with the drug war starting to wind down somewhat, they haven't been able to fill up. And to me, that's been a great news, a great thing to see these people who invested in locking up people, innocent people, to go bankrupt. The Washington Post has been doing really pretty good coverage for a number of years. A fairly conservative paper has actually been doing pretty good stuff. And this week they've been going head-to-head with New York Times on doing excellent anti-prohibition coverage. And this is one of my favorite stories. The headline is "The Federal Government's Incredibly Poor Misleading Argument for Marijuana Prohibition." If you guys didn't see it, the White House put out a rebuttal to the New York Times editorial. And the Washington Post here put out a rebuttal to the White House's. And they just go through it point by point, and it's just great. It's amazing. I'll just do a couple quick highlights. The White House said marijuana use affects developing brain, prolonged marijuana use beginning associated with adulthood, impairment, that kind of thing. Washington Post replies, the same is true for booze. The idea that cannabis is so dangerous, but everybody can drink booze, and that doesn't cause any problems, is totally hypocritical or wrong. And so I think the Washington Post would call them out on that. and say, you know, that didn't stop us from legalizing booze, the fact that it causes the same problems as cannabis. And then they even go on to dig deeper into the actual research, and it says, moreover, the study cited was a group of 59 individuals who had been heavy marijuana smokers for 16 years and who had smoked an average of 4.5 joints every single day over that period. That's the kind of skewed science that is used against cannabis. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's one. Again, a lot of these responses are basically that alcohol is, if not the same, is worse. Talking about marijuana is addictive, says the White House. Washington Post responds that while cannabis appears to be habit-forming for 9%, alcohol it's 15%. So cannabis is, if you compare it to alcohol, is safer. There's another one that really hits it hard here. During the Prop 19 campaign, if everybody doesn't know, Prop 19 was the legalization referendum that we got on the California ballot and that lost by 3.5 points in 2010. During that campaign, the RAND Institute did a study and said that marijuana legalization would not eliminate the black market for marijuana. And then the Washington Post responds that that RAND study actually only looked at whether or not legalization in California alone by itself, whether that would eliminate the black market. And of course it wouldn't. You still have 49 states with it illegal. And so they do a good job of calling the ONDCP on it and saying that it's hard to see how the ONDCP citation of this study to claim that marijuana legalization would not eliminate the black market for marijuana is anything other than a deliberate attempt to mislead. So just like Sanjay Gupta, when he came out with his CNN study, he didn't just say the government made a mistake, they meant well. He pretty much said they're lying. They've been lying to us. And pretty much came out and said that this isn't an honest mistake. These people are doing it on purpose, and they know the truth. And to see quotes like this about saying the White House is, or I shouldn't call it the White House, I should say it's the ONDCP, because it is somewhat of a bureaucracy unto itself, even if Obama could do more and should do more to rein them in. But anyway, to see them saying that they're deliberately misleading people is great to see. All right, let me move on. There's too much time on that. Here's the New York Daily News. All these articles are from either today or yesterday. Governor Cuomo wants health department to speed up medical marijuana availability for children with epilepsy. Well, that's nice. After all these years and all these people suffering, that they're now all of a sudden all concerned about, now that the stories are coming out of the epileptic children who are dying and moving to other states to get the medicine, and now all of a sudden they're all in a hurry to change the laws and stuff. Where were they for years? I shouldn't, I guess, be so bitter. I should appreciate him, coming on board as much as he is, but I guess after seeing so many of these politicians do so little for so long, to see them now all of a sudden so upset and trying to move this immovable bureaucracy, it's, to me, it's sad that it's taken this long. All right, here is Philadelphia, CBS, Philadelphia. Kevin Sabet, in case you don't know, he is the leading prohibitionist at the moment. He's the guy who's kind of, by himself, decided to become the spokesperson for cannabis prohibition, even though he's really not totally for cannabis prohibition. He's kind of had to soften the rhetoric to say that they're for smart approaches. That's the name of his group, is SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, which tries to say we shouldn't lock people up, but we shouldn't make it legal either, which really doesn't make any sense, because if you're not going to make it legal, then you have to lock people up. Anyway, here's his quote in a Philadelphia paper. It's ironic that we're pushing against smoking so hard, yet we're ready to give marijuana a free pass. And you have his basic tired arguments, and I forget what I was going to comment on this about. Here's one of his quotes. Sabet also said that he supports any safe medicinal uses of marijuana may have, but the recreational use should remain legal. And I like the way he, kind of says safe medicinal use of marijuana. Like, it's up to him to decide what's safe, instead of the doctors and the patients. And he goes on to talk about the CBD varieties of cannabis, or formulations and preparations of cannabis. For those that don't know, cannabis contains a number of cannabinoids, which are the individual molecules that have that have medicinal benefits and have the chemistry that make up cannabis. And and he says, and in this article, he says it's called CBD instead of CBD. So I hope for his sake that he was misquoted there, and he's not so ill-informed that he doesn't even know the right chemicals that he's talking about. And it is interesting to see that, in case people don't know about this, this issue of cannabis that has medical benefits but does not have a psychoactive effect. One of the popular names for it is Charlotte's Web. That's the name these growers gave to a variety of cannabis that they grew, that they've been growing, that is high in one cannabinoid, cannabidiol, or shortened to CBD, and low in the cannabinoid that has most of the psychoactive effect, tetrahydrocannabinol. Tetrahydro THC. Anyway, it's been a big thing in the last 6 months to a year or so, basically since Sanjay Gupta's piece came out on the epileptic patients who have shown shown to help them a lot, that this particular variety and cannabinoid really helps them. And so a lot of the legislatures, 3 or 4 states now, have passed CBD-only laws there that allow patients to have cannabis as long as it's low in THC and high in CBD only, which is good for this very narrow group of patients, the epileptic patients, but leaves out all the other ones that would be helped by other formulations. And anyway, but Florida just passed a CBD law. Idaho, I think, is another one. Of course, a lot of them are mostly unworkable because they require that the CBD be imported from other states, which is against federal law. And this just came out, like the Florida law called for more research on it, but then the University of Florida just came back and said that we can't do any research because we get federal money and that would jeopardize it. So, of course, I don't think I need to say this, but the big issue, of course, is federal law. That as much as we're making progress on the state level and things are going great there, as long as it's illegal federally, it really does come up to works and stop a lot of things from going forward. And so we've got a lot of work to do to change federal law to really make things work. Here's a story of, oh yeah, this is I don't know where Jerry got this. Oh, he got it from the Join Together staff, whoever that is. But I just got this from Jerry, and it is, headline is History of Drinking Problems Linked with Memory Deficits in Later Life. So, you hear about short-term memory with cannabis and stuff, but you don't hear about that. It also happens with booze, and but that didn't stop us from legalizing booze. There was another editorial here that I thought is interesting from a debate perspective. The editorial says that when you look back at alcohol prohibition, what you see is that per capita use of alcohol during prohibition dropped more than 50%. That as a result of that, alcohol-related diseases. Prohibition was an enormous public health success. Anybody read that in your history books? You know, these people are really having to reach deep to say that alcohol prohibition was a success, but that's what some people really believe, is that prohibition is, despite all the problems it causes, that it's actually a good thing. Here's a report from National Normal, that talks about how arrests are going up in a lot of states. While in general we brought down the numbers somewhat, they were about 800,000 a year. Now they're a little under 700,000 a year. But in some states, in some places, they're arresting people more than they have in the past. So despite all of the advances we've made politically, in the media, and things like that, there's still a lot of people who are getting hurt by cannabis prohibition. There's another Washington Post piece here that really goes through what's happening lately, and I really recommend that you Google marijuana legalization and look up some of these stories from this week. And this one is really good. It's the headline is "Blunt Forces: How Marijuana is Changing America," and it goes through cites different facts. Like number one here, in Colorado, recreational weed costs twice as much as medical and black market weed, and it goes through some of the data there and other things that will really educate you about what's going on. Another big story this week, senators, this is from syndication, McClatchy syndicators. Senators urge Obama to deliver consistent message on marijuana. And this is one of the big issues, like I said before, about that despite all the advances we were making on the state and local level, federally, we've got a long way to go. With prohibition, federal prohibition is complete and entire. It doesn't matter whether it's for medical, religious, whatever reasons you have for it. All cannabis is totally legal under federal law. One seed, one joint, one plant, doesn't matter. And so what is happening is we have the different federal bureaucracies are handling it in different ways. Generally, mostly all of them are saying it's still illegal, so therefore you can't do it, even despite the Attorney General saying that Colorado and Washington can proceed, and the Treasury Department calling on the banks to allow the cannabis businesses to use the banks and things like that. You still have departments like the Department of Reclamation up in Washington State saying that none of the cannabis farms can use any federally dammed water. No water from the Bureau of Reclamation. And so anyway, the senators have come together, the 4 senators from Colorado and Washington have come together to try to get the Obama to rein in all his federal bureaucracies and get them on the same page. Another kind of humorous article about what's going on in Colorado, the kind of a sign of things to come. Pot edibles can't use ski run signage. Everybody know what ski run signage is? Ski runs are kind of shallow and easy, or they're very steep and very difficult. The shallow ones are a green circle, and the real steep, dangerous ones that are for experts only are called black diamond. It's like a standardized way of reading the trail signs so that you don't go down the wrong one and kill yourself. If you're more of a beginner, you don't want to go on the black diamond. Well, one of the ideas the Colorado cannabis industry had was to use that kind of signage for cannabis foods, for cannabis edibles, so that people would know what they were ingesting. If it was something that was very concentrated and strong, then it would get the black diamond. If it wasn't, it would get the green circle. So the Colorado ski industry did not like this. And they just got it put into Colorado law that the law says the symbols promulgated by rule of the state licensing authority must not appropriate signs or symbols associated with another Colorado business or industry. So that's kind of an interesting story. All right, here's a story from the Denver Post. Reached a tipping point in the U.S. and it talks about all the how far we've come, but then they have one sobering paragraph here, which I think is very good to keep in mind to think about how far we still have to go. The drifted opinion in favor of legalization has a way to go among the power elite. For example, a Huffington Post analysis published in April asserted that not a single one of the nation's 50 governors and 100 U.S. senators had announced support for full legalization. And I think that does tell you that despite it being in the newspapers and reading about other states legalizing, we still have a long way to go to actually change federal law. California is a great example. We've had medical marijuana for 18 years now, and the U.S. senators have never really supported it. They're kind of starting to, but the California senators, which should be some of the leaders on this issue, are not in favor at all. So with that, I'll throw it open to questions so we can talk about what you guys want to talk about.
Hey Richard, you got a lot of activists in the room and also some business owners, and you kind of bridge the gap between the two. So I know you don't like talking about yourself, but if you could talk a little bit about sort of the empire you built and how you kind of made a living out of your passion and activism, kind of what you've done going forward. And then after that, if you could talk about, I know you're going to Florida, and a little bit about what's going on there with their medical marijuana law being a red southern state that is not really seen as successful medical marijuana program.
All right, I'll start with Florida. Florida is, it looks to be like it's going to be the first state in the South to pass a medical marijuana referendum to successfully have medical marijuana laws. They just came back with polling from Florida that showed 88% support for medical marijuana. So that's great news. The one bit of caution with Florida is that their election law says that you have to have 60% of the vote to win there, not just 50% plus one. So they've got a high threshold to pass, but the pollsters who did this polling, it was independently done, it wasn't done by the people in favor with the initiative of the referendum. They predicted that it will pass with that extra gap over it. So I'm not sure what else to talk about Florida.
Yourself.
No, I guess that's it for Florida. I think we'll cover that. Me, huh? I started here in 1992. I co-opened other brave soldiers, legal marijuana, the hemp store. In 1992, things were really, really, really bad. If you look at the polling from back then, we only had about 30% support for legalization, as opposed to now it's over 50%. And so this was basically right at the tail end of the height of the 80s drug war. And Bill Clinton did nothing to really ratchet it down. If anything, if you look at the arrest statistics, they went up with Bill Clinton. So the idea that the Democrats are, softer on this or better on this hasn't really shown, it doesn't come through in the history. But so anyway, so in '92, the big idea or new thing that I found out about and other people thought was a really good place to start at the time was talking about the benefits of industrial hemp. Everybody know about hemp now? Everybody? Yes? No? I didn't see. Does anybody not know? Back in '92, you don't know, or you do?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So a few people still don't know what hemp is. Never heard of the word hemp
Well, no,
before.
I've heard of it.
Back in '92, nobody even knew what the word hemp was. Nobody knew that hemp and cannabis were the same thing. And so it was our first education project, was to get out there the idea that this industrial crop that had all these environmental benefits and economic benefits had been written out of the history books and eliminated with cannabis. And so that's when we started Legal Marijuana at the Hemp Store, to not only sell books and provide information about hemp, but to actually sell and show off hemp products, actual clothes made of marijuana. And so this was a great man bites dog kind of story for the media back then. The idea that, you know, these people are walking around in clothes made of marijuana, you know, and can you smoke your pants? You know, I heard that joke, you know, more than not enough to make you want to puke after a while, because it's just so stupid, but that's the level we were at back then. And it's since '92, it's been amazing how much hemp has taken off, and that we used to say that if half of what we're saying is true about hemp, it'll be a miracle crop. And it's turned out that more than half has been true. Not only has it gone on to now be used in making cars, interior car panels and things like that, Mercedes-Benz and Chrysler used to make cars. The hemp seed and the hemp seed oil, not only for cosmetics, but also for the nutritional benefits. That's all come out, and now you can find that stuff in health food stores. And you may have heard the news just this year about the Congress passing a hemp bill to allow more hemp growing. It's been an ongoing battle over the years with the DEA seizing hemp seeds and from people trying to import them to grow with and chopping down crops. Because basically now all the hemp products that Americans consume and use are all have to be grown in other countries. And the police say, well, we're too stupid to tell the difference between marijuana that's used otherwise and industrial hemp. You know, the rest of the world, all these other countries that produce it, their police must be a lot smarter than our police or something, because our police have been holding on to this idea that hemp, you know, if we allowed it, would wreck their enforcement actions. So that's been a great story to see develop. Anyway, back then in the early '90s, starting with the hemp stuff was a great place to start, because when you started telling people, prohibitionists, you know, people who were totally against legalization, you started telling them things about marijuana, about hemp in history that they had no idea about. You all of a sudden started looking more intelligent than them. You know, and it was a great way to kind of get a conversation started and telling them things that they had no idea about. And so that was what I used to say about the hemp stuff. That was really great. That not only is it mostly a separate issue, but it's not, because the reason that it's disallowed is because of the marijuana issue, of course. But it's also a great issue. It was also a great issue back there because it was an opening to start talking to people, and then you could go on and you didn't just look like a crazy stoner who just wanted to get high. You had more to talk about than they were ever aware of. Anyway, so I went on from doing a hemp store in the early '90s here in Montrose, just a couple blocks away. Actually, it was what was the address? It was West Park, no.
West Alabama.
West Alabama and Grossart. You remember better than me. Yeah, about 2 blocks over on West Park. West Alabama. And then in '95, I heard about what was going on with medical marijuana in San Francisco. This was when the AIDS epidemic was still happening. You know, we're coming out of the '80s AIDS epidemic, and a number of the AIDS patients were finding that cannabis was a great medicine for them, and so the medical marijuana had what you would have to say is like a third resurgence. There was the original medical marijuana that goes back to before marijuana was illegal, which was in patent medicines and widely consumed, and then, of course, cannabis was made legal in the early 1900s, and then there was kind of a resurgence with medical marijuana in the 1970s, and that got squashed out by the, I hate to say this here, but the Reagan Revolution. You know, and the ramping up of the drug war under Nancy Reagan kind of squashed all that, and then after the AIDS epidemic hit, it started again with the cancer patients and the AIDS patients. And so I heard about what was going on in California and decided that's where the front lines were, that was the place to be. And so it took me a while to find the right spot and place. Like I said, I first started visiting in '95, and I actually moved there in '97, a few months after Prop 215 passed, which was the first medical marijuana referendum. California was the first state to allow medical marijuana. And started working with Jeff Jones and the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Cooperative, really amazing, courageous guy who he had also moved to Oakland to start helping medical marijuana patients. He kind of picked up the flag after Dennis Barone got shut down. Dennis Barone is one of the first really big guys, big heroes for medical marijuana. You guys can Google more about him and the San Francisco Cannabis Buyers Club, which was the first big organization to openly distribute cannabis and to get a lot of media and a lot of attention. And then they got shut down in.
First, they want to hear about what you did in Oakland.
No, I'm going to go off on this.
I know.
I'm getting back to me. I'm sorry. I'll get back to me quite faster. So,
You only have time.
okay, that's it.
Only a mother can do that, right?
So Jeff Jones and the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Cooperative happened to open just a couple of weeks before Dennis Barone and the San Francisco Cannabis Buyers Cooperative got shut down. So he, like I said, picked up the flag, and Oakland became a center for cannabis, for medical marijuana. And when I moved to Oakland, I was originally going to move to San Francisco and help Dennis Barone, but then I met Jeff Jones and wound up moving to Oakland instead, and I'm glad I did. I really like Oakland over San Francisco. It's warmer. San Francisco is too cold in the summer. I know that's crazy to say here in not Houston, but anyway. So I worked with Jeff Jones at the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Club. And then when he got shut down by the feds in '98, a number of people who were working with the OCBC started opening up their own dispensaries, and that's how Oaksterdam really took off, really first started. It was, I like to say, it's like the sorcerer's apprentice, right? They try to kill us by chopping us into pieces, but instead of killing us, the pieces just grow up on their own, and then they have more opposition. And that's what happened in Oakland, is when they closed the OCBC, a number of people opened up dispensaries, and I was one of them with the Bulldog Coffee Shop, named after the famous chain of cannabis coffee shops in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And I've always really liked that model of the cannabis coffee shops, and it's been really sad to see so much of the dispensary, the whole movement, accept takeout only. on-site consumption as just, we had it for a few years before Oakland actually started issuing permits for cannabis dispensaries. Oakland was the first city to do it, and we kind of forced them to do it because there was a dozen dispensaries already open before there were any permits. And but when they passed the permit ordinance, it didn't allow any on-site consumption, and that's the way things have continued now in all the states. And it's really sad to see, because when I would go to Amsterdam, one of the great things was to not just be able to legally purchase cannabis, but to have a place where you could socialize with other people taking cannabis, enjoying cannabis. And it was it's political centers. It's places for people to get together, like there's history of this, of coffee shops and pubs and bars being places for people to get together and ferment revolution and talk and get together. And we've lost a lot of that by not allowing on-site consumption. So anyway, so that gets us up to it says they opened the Bulldog Coffee Shop around 2000, and then in 2007 we saw that there was a lot of people who wanted to get into the cannabis business, wanted to help patients get medical marijuana, but they didn't know what they were doing and weren't doing it right. And the other idea that I got from the trip to Amsterdam was, I got the idea from Amsterdam, and they had a place called the Cannabis College. And it was basically just a little information storefront. They had a little garden, and it was an adjunct to a seed company. So when you went next door and bought your seeds, then you could go next door to the Cannabis College, and they would give you some tips and information and help on how to grow it. Well, so when I got back, we decided to take that to the next level with not just having kind of informal information, but to have a real curriculum. That's how we started Oaksterdam University in 2007. And besides trying to help people do it the right way, get into the cannabis industry and do things right, the other idea behind Oaksterdam University was the concept of promoting a cannabis industry. Because before that, it had always just been, well, you know, we should let a few people grow it for their own medical needs, and maybe some co-ops or, you know, sharing and a little bit of that, but not really an idea of an industry that created jobs and paid taxes, and that should be licensed and regulated and legalized and looked at as an industry, just as the brewery industry is, or anything else that we get. You know, we don't say, well, we want some good beer. I hope there's enough volunteers out there making beer, you know. But that was basically the idea before 2007, and that was that if you wanted any cannabis, you should either grow it yourself or get some volunteers or a co-op to kind of get together, kumbaya, share it, you know, but nobody really, you know, had a job and making money at it. And so we were trying to change that, and so it's been really great to see how much that has taken off since 2007. And the idea, like I said, when we used the word, our motto for Oaksterdam University was quality training for the cannabis industry. And now we've seen the term cannabis industry used lots since then, and so that's been really great to see.
How many have gone through you? How many have
We've had about 15,000 students attend Oaksterdam University, students from all over the world, all 50 states. To this day, more than 50% of our students are from out of state, and we've gotten lots of reports back from the other states that have legalized since, from Colorado and other states, that a number of the people who are active in the industry, leaders in the industry, attended Oaksterdam University, or OU alumni. So that's been great to see. A lot of people coming from states like Florida, which has got it on the ballot this year, but also like Illinois, that just passed their medical marijuana law. People who came there and said, who came to Oaksterdam University and said, well, we want to be ready when the law passes back in our state. So it's been great to see those people come to California and take what they learned back and their activism back to where they're from. Yes.
I was just going to ask what kind of classes, like if you could name some of the classes.
All right, our basic curriculum is we start off with politics. That's a required course. You have to take politics and legal issues before you can take any of the more fun classes. Those are our prerequisites because the mission of Oaksterdam University always has been to change the laws to end cannabis prohibition. It's not just about teaching people how to make money and grow cannabis. I see it as a chicken and egg thing. People need to do it. It has to be done for it to become legal, and it has to become legal for people to do it. They go together. It doesn't just happen in a vacuum. After politics and legal issues, we move on to cultivation, one of the favorites. That's what a lot of people come there for, is to learn how to grow. Another big course subject is cooking with cannabis, producing food products with cannabis. It turns out this is a little bit more complicated than a lot of people think. You just don't take the raw cannabis flowers and dump them into the cooking mix. You have to treat them with the right amount of heat. Too little heat, you won't activate the THC properly. Too little heat, you won't activate it properly. Too much, you will kill it or negate it. So that's a good course. A lot to learn there. And then we have, what other courses do we have? I can't think of any right now. Any other questions? Sorry?
How long does it take to complete?
Oh, what is the curriculum or length of it? We have different courses that we teach. We have weekend seminars, and that's really was our mainstay when we first started. Was a all-day Saturday, all-day Sunday. People would come in from out of town, flying from out of state, and we have 8 hours, 9 hours both days. It's an intensive weekend. And then since then, we've expanded to having semester-long classes that are more specialized, like that are just on cultivation or just on cooking with cannabis. And those last different lengths. Some of them meet more than once a week for a month. Some of them meet once a week for several months. So we have different, what do you call it, offerings there.
Let me ask everyone. I was wanting to know more about the curriculum.
Kind of retired, not kind of, I have retired, in case you guys don't know about the raid. The federal government raided Oaksterdam University and our other businesses in April of 2012, and I turned over the school to our chancellor at the time, Dale Jones, and so she has been running Oaksterdam University for the last 2 years. I should be able to remember more classes.
Something he has left out. In Oakland, what did you do about the taxing of cannabis? You want to put in a special place on sales tax, correct? What did you do about the taxing? How did you get taxed? Why did Oakland like you so much? You know what I'm talking about?
Except for the part of the special part on taxing cannabis, the taxing cannabis was part of the legal issues class, and we did have some more advanced classes that got into business issues in particular that try to educate people more about actually running a cannabis business as opposed to just learning how to do it for your own personal use. But Oakland passed, actually, we passed 3 different cannabis tax laws. They started off by passing a special law that doubled the tax rate for cannabis businesses, or made the taxes for cannabis business double that of all the rest of the businesses in Oakland. And then a couple of years later, they came back and doubled that again, and then doubled it again since then. So Oakland and a number of cities in California have very high gross receipts tax that they pay to the, that are much higher than any other taxes that are collected by cities in California. And that's one of the things.
Which is why when they raided you, who was defending you? The citizens of Oakland.
Right, we had city council people who came to the raid and protested along with
They did not like
everybody
the
else.
fact that the federal government was raiding him on that day.
It's an ongoing battle with the city of Oakland. They've attacked other dispensaries in Oakland, and the city of Oakland has become not co-defendant, but what's the right word for when they file amicus briefs or
Friend of the court.
yeah, things. Well, actually, they filed their own. Some of them have this. In some of the cases, they filed their own actions against the DEA for trying to shut down the Oakland dispensaries.
What prompted them to raid you? What was the background and key players?
Well, unless you've nobody talked to the U.S. attorney and the DEA, directly, I haven't seen them quoted in any books or papers about exactly what prompted the raid on Oaksterdam, but in general it was part of a counteroffensive that was started in 2011 by the U.S. attorneys of California, all four of them held a press conference in October 2011 announcing that they were going to attack the cannabis industry in California, and they began going after the landlords of the properties of cannabis businesses by seizing their properties and using the civil forfeiture and using every other kind of trick they could. And so we were part of that bigger offensive of that kind of period where they were trying to fight back after the successes that we had with Prop 19. I know we lost, so in many ways it was a failure. But in a lot of ways, it was a very big success because we got a lot of support, and that was the first time we had unions come on board. The UFCW number 5, which is United Farm and Commercial Workers Union. They do a lot of grocery store clerks. They came on board and have been instrumental in getting a lot more unions on board. And then also one of the big successes of Prop 19 that I'm very proud of is getting civil rights organizations on board, like the NAACP. So we give a shout out to about there's a really great, courageous lady who was the head of the California NAACP, and I heard that she wanted to meet with us. And this was something, Jerry can talk about this, for years and years. We had exactly one African American, right, in the reform movement. We would talk about how the law not only doesn't have racist beginnings and origins, but it's being applied in a very racist way that more minorities are arrested than anybody else with cannabis prohibition. But we could never get the civil rights organizations on board, so we heard Alice Helpman wanted to talk to us. This is during the beginning of Prop 19, early part of the Prop 19 campaign. We were thinking, well, we're going to have to really put a good sales pitch on her. We really need to work hard to get her on board. She came into the office and we couldn't get in a word edgewise. We couldn't talk. She went on a 15-minute rant about had an epiphany about how this is terrible for African Americans, and that whatever she could do, and it was really beautiful to see. And she's followed through with getting more of national NAACP and other civil rights organizations on board. So that was one of the big victories or successes of Prop 19. So anyway, despite us losing, just to wrap up what you were saying about, that's kind of where the counterattack came from the federal government and the U.S. attorneys, basically on their own, because cannabis was taking off around California and other states. medical marijuana dispensaries were expanding, and cultivation was not to get into too much of the weeds about this, but cultivation was kind of out of hand in California as far as, see, one of the big problems with California has been Prop 215, because it was the first medical marijuana law, was written very vague. It did not provide for any distribution of cannabis. It only allowed patients and their caregivers to grow cannabis for themselves. Of course, there was no way to actually get the cannabis to grow for yourself. You know, to get the first seeds or plants had to be produced out of thin air, you know, under the law, because you understand what I'm saying, there's no way for it to be provided to anybody and distributed and for anybody to give it to other people. So what has happened over the years is that the California legislature has never really wanted to embrace medical marijuana, so they've never really passed a law. This is in the news actually this week, that they're trying to finally pass a medical marijuana legislation regulation bill after all these years to put in statewide regulations, because the one law that they did pass, humorously titled SB 420, I don't know who was in charge of numbering it, but Senate Bill 420, it's kind of humorous that it got numbered that. It somewhat allowed distribution. It called for cooperatives, members of cooperatives to be able to provide cannabis to the other members of the cooperative. But that was in 2004, but really it was out of date even then, because cities like Oakland at the same time were passing laws that basically regulated the dispensaries as a business, like any other business, taxed and required them to pay their employees and pay taxes and do everything else. So anyway, we've been operating in California for many years without any real statewide regulation. And in 2011, that meant that there was large farms in the valley that were growing cannabis, with the idea that you just basically had to put a sign in the ground saying, "This is medical marijuana, and we can grow thousands of plants." You can grow, and if you can grow 50 for each patient, then all we need to do is put 100 patients' names down on the sign, and we can grow 5,000 plants. And so that's basically where the law enforcement, a lot of the law enforcement counterattack came from the fact that there was this gray area regulation that a lot of people basically ran wild with. Los Angeles never, until recently, but back then, did not pass any regulations, any system to permit dispensaries, so hundreds of them opened up, and so that was seen as out of control as well, and so everybody just kind of goes with the history of the back and forth of the war, with we attack and they counterattack, and that's part of the counterattack. So short answer.
Another question.
I do have a question. Looking ahead, assuming we're going to get a medical law passed here in Texas, God willing, what about the doctors? Because we're going to have to go to doctors, and in my short experience with this, I've seen a doctor in Colorado who basically knew nothing about autism and not a whole lot about cannabis. I didn't think even though he was an expert. How do we get the doctors educated and help us through this? You know, thinking about your Oaksterdam University, how can we proactively plan for when this law is enacted that we can actually have a functional law for our kids?
I don't have any good short answer for that. I just in general have to say politics, that you have to get out there and communicate with other people in similar situations and lobby and find doctors who are supportive and are willing to lobby and work for it.
How do they learn? How do we get them to learn? Are they just going to have to learn like we did by reading on the internet and taking our
Right, and in general, I find with this issue, I'll just answer this real quick and then I'll turn it over to you guys. In general with this issue, I find that you can make all the logical arguments you want. You can, make perfect sense and stuff, but so much with this issue comes from people's heart. Either you are open to it, or believe in it, or accepting of it, or you're the other way, you're totally against it, and people, won't listen if they're that way, and if they are open to it, then they will. And so to find doctors who are open to the idea is, I think, a big part of what you need to do because that's been a big part, I think, of the epilepsy, is to have the epilepsy doctors get on board. Yep.
Dr. Martin.
That's all this about, Bill Martin's here. Tell us what happened in DC.
Want to come up here?
I think you can hear me all right.
No, we can't hear you.
Tell us about yesterday.
I'll give you an introduction. I just got back from Washington, D.C., where they distributed Dean Becker's new book, Ending Prohibition. You distributed it to all Congress, I believe. I'll let you take it from there.
I didn't distribute it, but Students for a Sensible Drug Policy distributed. Dean Becker, whom I guess not many of you know about it, for years he's been interviewing people on the Drug Truth Network. And I direct the drug policy program at Rice University, the Baker Institute. And now Dean he has a new title, Contributing Expert. that's a promotion from Research Associate. So he's happy with that, and we're happy with that as well. But the book, it's really it's a very useful book, and he's put it together with Dean's typical passion. But he has arranged these segments from these interviews in an excellent way. So yesterday, they held a press conference. And it was not widely attended, but it was that was the point, was to just put stakes in the ground. But Students for a Sensible Drug Policy are passing around today and yesterday, not exactly physical copies of the book because that might get lost, but we've got a nice packet, and he has Kindle coupons and codes where they can get copies of the book, for hoping that everyone in Congress will read it this summer. Probably a long shot. Any good staff members, 3 of Rand Paul's staff members were there at the yesterday. But I wanted to speak to the question about how to get doctors interested in what can be done. We are now I'm now in touch, or I guess I'm the one right now at the Baker Institute, but with a young woman, Leslie McCarran, who happens to be a Rice graduate, although I didn't know her. She graduated in the 1990s. But she set herself up to be one of the leading. She wants to be the leading expert on medical marijuana, medical cannabis use, as we should always say, in the country. And she has a sizable grow and dispensary in New Mexico, and is one of the major people there. And she is setting up, and perhaps you know Leslie? Yeah, she is setting, has arrangement with the University of California at San Francisco to give continuing medical education courses for credit. And one of the things that she's going to try to do later this year is to hold CME courses at some place in eastern New Mexico, close to the Texas border, in the hope that it will be relatively easy for Texas doctors who are interested in this to come and get the kind of education they need for just exactly what Emily was talking about. So there is a recognition that some concrete steps need to be taken, and we hope to collaborate with her and encourage her in that effort. And she has many big ideas, and we want to pair with her on some. So the questions are being at least dealt with or recognized.
There's another point there too, because there's an annual therapeutic conference, okay, and it's accredited, and we've had experts from around the world comes in and it once a year, and any doctor can attend and so forth, if people are interested can attend that conference. So it exists. Get in touch with them.
Question back here?
Yes, I was wondering if you run into any like religious groups that use marijuana as maybe a sacrament? Or any successful churches of any kind that are using marijuana?
I know of individuals. I don't know too many groups that really make up. I guess the one would be Roger Christie, who is in federal prison in Hawaii, who has tried to say that cannabis is a sacrament and that he was a minister of a cannabis ministry, and the federal government did not take that too well. And basically, to respond to the idea of the legal arguments that cannabis, that you could use it for religious reasons, the courts have said no. And so I don't really know of any. I guess the only thing that I remember always reading about, don't really have much personal experience with, is the Coptic Christians, I think they were called. I think they're like Jamaican ganja guys. No? Egyptian, not Jamaican. Anyway, like I said, that's not, I don't know.
The Rastafarians are the only ones that I know that established recognized.
Right, and there's some Rastafarian, yeah, but not really in the U.S. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Any other? Yes.
Richard, what are you doing now? Are you back in Houston?
No, I'm still in Oakland, teaching at Oaksterdam University and supporting what's going on there.
I want to bring this back to Rand. And I want to ask you if you agree with me. Why should Republicans support the repeal of marijuana prohibition? Do we not support smaller government? What did the drug war do to smaller government? Did it not do just the opposite? Fiscal responsibility, and we've been very responsible about the way we spent the money on the drug war. And the thing that I think we all hold most dear is personal liberty. And with personal liberty goes personal responsibility. To me, those are the cornerstones of what makes me a Republican. And that is why I think Republicans are much at home against marijuana prohibition. Am I right? Have I drawn a little line?
We're taxed enough already.
We need to be responsible for ourselves. We need to live. I support the liberty of having a drink if you want one, but we also support the liberty to have marijuana if you want it. Are we all not all tied together? And what can we, so then I get back to practicality. What can we do about this? What can you, each one of you, do about it? First of all, get in touch with your congressman. Make sure that they know that they got this Kindle all about the book. Make sure they know about it, that you know about it, and that you expect them to know about it. Let them know that you know that they should know. What can we all do as individuals? We're only going to get the government that we demand. And we have to demand from the people that are responsible to us that they know about this issue. Is that right? Am I?
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. So I charge each one of you. I charge each one of you taking the responsibility, finding out who your congressman is, who your states. You know who your two senators are, Cornyn and Cruz. Then find out who your state senator is and your state legislator.
Your precinct chair. Precinct chair.
Right. Get involved in being a precinct chairman. I have one standing here right here. Get involved. We only would get the government that we demand. And we have to demand for these mamas that they have the right to use the medicine that's best for their children. We need to demand that of them.
I've been kind of in and out tonight on a conference call with Texas parents and another cannabis oil group. I just wanted you all to know that on Tuesday there will be a group of families going to the state capitol to meet with legislators. Some of them will be by appointment. We'll also be knocking on doors and working in groups of 3. So this is happening, and we have Republicans coming in behind us and also contacting legislators and setting up those meetings and setting up emails. It was really helping, especially with families. We've got families here that are desperate, their kids are in danger of dying, and they deserve the right to have CBD oil, to have a doctor titrate that THC as needed, and we need your support. So I'm really excited right now getting off that call because these families are ready to take action, and these moms are desperate, and their kids are, kids die waiting for legislation. We have 3 kids die in New York while waiting for that bill to pass. It's not good enough, and we need your support. And I just wanted to say that. And religious groups that support medical marijuana are out there. The Methodist Church, the Episcopalian Church, we can be reaching out to those organizations as well. But we need your help. So don't just, what Ann said, yeah, I'll contact the legislator. No, please, do it. Seriously.
Yeah, I guess I didn't say that. There are nominations that come out against cannabis prohibition, and unfortunately the Pope continues to be for cannabis prohibition. He was just came out on the record and saying
We're gonna have to change him. Presbyterians all endorse medical marijuana. And there's another point about being a Republican. We say we're pro-life, correct? Pro-life has to do more than stopping an abortion. If you stop an abortion, but deny that child the medicine that either keeps it alive or regulates its seizure, are you pro-life? I don't think so. We have to take the pro-life issue, make it our issue. It is my issue. I believe abortion is wrong, but I think it is just as wrong to keep your children for the medicines that make their life better for them. That is not being pro-life. We need to please. If you are a true Republican, and by the way, our state platform endorsed fully informed jury and industrial hemp. By the way, they didn't know what they should have, but they didn't do that much. But being a Republican means living up to our principles. And our principles are very much the repeal of marijuana prohibition. Thank you, John.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for coming again. If you would give Richard one more big round of applause. And it really means a lot to kind of hear your story. And I hope everybody is passionate to go out, be a stronger advocate to change marijuana policy in Texas. Real quickly, I want to give everybody plenty of time to socialize, but I just want to make a couple statements on some of the things RAMP is doing, along with a network of other groups and organizations that have formed a coalition in Texas. Part of that being the Marijuana Policy Project, obviously Texas Normal, several other groups, the MALAs. There's a couple bills that are right now in the Legislative Council being drafted for introduction in the 2015 legislative session. One of those is going to be a decriminalization bill that will lower 1 ounce or less to a civil penalty, which is right now a Class B misdemeanor, so it won't be a jailable offense. Also, Representative Dutton, who introduced his bill last session to change it 1 ounce or less from a Class B to a Class C misdemeanor, he's going to introduce that this time again. So, which actually got out of committee last session, so hopefully that'll have more movement and more support this time. Next, there will be a medical marijuana bill to set up a full, legal regulatory framework for distribution, cultivation, and use of medical cannabis. And then also they're going to introduce, which is more of a long shot, the tax and regulate bill as well. So going back to that, if anybody in here that's not familiar with RAMP, what we do at the political caucus, we're always in somebody's face about changing marijuana policy. So whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, come visit with us. Let us find out who your representatives are. Let us teach you the ways to get with the representatives and their staff, and just really educate them about this issue. That's what we found in our meetings, is it's all about education. And for a lot of the representatives, it's about, they think this is a politically dangerous issue. Little they know that over 75% of Texans support eliminating criminal penalties for possession of marijuana. 55% of Republicans also support eliminating criminal penalties for possession of marijuana. So they feel that their constituents don't support this issue when in fact they do. So it's so important that you let them hear that you're a voting member of their constituency and that you want these marijuana laws changed. And eventually, if enough of us do that, we'll have some success. You've already seen in Houston, as Zoe mentioned earlier, the Democratic District Attorney candidate, Kim Ogg, came out with a very, very powerful program, the GRACE program, to basically implement sign and release and quit arresting and ruining people's lives for simple marijuana possession. And also, as she mentioned, Devin Anderson, the Republican DA, has now come out and said that she has her own program that she's been working on. So already the pressure is being put on her, and it's up to everybody in this room to make sure that District Attorney Devin Anderson gets a phone call from every one of you saying that you support Kim Ogg's program and that you need to get in line. And obviously they have to enforce the laws that are on the books, but this is an alternative that's a better solution. As far as the laws are now, it's sort of the best we can do.
And there's one other date, John.
Yeah.
There is a group, an app called and says Rethink. It's started by George Strickland from Dallas. They have been meeting, they met twice down at the Capitol, and they're meeting September 27th. I think you all have been, some of George, have you not? There's a group of many, when I spoke in Fort Worth at a normal convention, there were many different groups. We all have the same idea. And a group of them are going to meet in Austin Saturday, the 27th of September. I plan to be there representing RAMP and whoever else wants to. Different groups from different. There's so many of us now. We've got to make a difference. Thank you, John.
Yeah, and another group is the sheriffs. You know, the Denton County sheriffs just recently put out a resolution basically condemning the legalization of marijuana. And they had a lot of the same tired prohibitionist points that were made in the White House as a rebuttal of the New York Times article. So again, the sheriff, he's an elected official, he's accountable to us. We need to let them know that we approve of sign and release, that we don't want kids' lives ruined for small amounts of marijuana possession. So again, just hold your politicians accountable. If you need help, reach out to us. We have the resources to get you a meeting, get you in our office. And also, I'd like to recognize Jason Miller. He's been a very instrumental part of the
I just want to let everybody know, I just donated another $200 to the money bomb, so I need some help. Go on your phone, go to rampgop.org. Let's donate some money because going to LPAC is extremely important. We have to remember that RAMP is a national organization, and seeing this many people in one room, in Houston is great, but we need to have this many people in one room in every major market in the country. So going to something like the Liberty Political Action Conference is a great way to meet other people from across the country who feel the same way that we do already, who are already involved in politics, and let's make something happen. Zoe has a square meter back there. If I'd like to see a line start to form, we can donate some money, even if it's only $5 or $10. Let's. We've got 955 out of 3,000, so we've got a little ways more to go. For the last day of it is tomorrow, so let's donate some money and let's see RAMP make a splash at LPAC this year. And I also want to remind everybody, so Houston Normal, I'm now the Executive Director of the Houston Chapter of Normal, so I'm focusing my efforts on Harris County across the broad audience of the entire political spectrum. We're having an event on August 28th. We've got the Harris County Young Democrats and the Houston Young Republicans coming together for an event, which is going to be really interesting, along with the Libertarian Party and the Marijuana Policy Project. So that's August 28th at Dan Electros. HoustonNormal.org, you can find more information about that. So I'll go back to John. Thanks.
And real quickly, at Richard's discretion, I want to introduce Carl Jarvis. If you just stand up for a moment. He's recently written a book, The United States of Dysfunction. So I'm only about a third of the way through it, but already it's just very insightful about kind of the condition of the system of government that we have today in America not functioning as it should and as its purpose was in the beginning. So one of the key factors in the book is that it's not so much ideological between Republican, Democrat, and Libertarian. It's really systemic, the breakdown of our Republican form of government. So Carl has some copies with him. They're only $10, so it's a great deal. And Carl will probably autograph it for you and tell you.
Actually, I'll make it an even better deal. Anyone who donates $10 to the Money Bomb, I will give you a copy.
All right, well, with that, everybody, thanks again for
I
coming.
just say thank you, just say thank you. We can make a difference. We can look at us, everybody look at each other. You can make a difference. You can make a difference. I know the differences you can. You can make a difference. We can make a difference. If we just use our energy and our God-given talent to do what's right. We've got to keep this country back to being fair to everybody. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? Thank you. I didn't know what price it is.
to enforce the laws. So therefore,
I'll see you guys.
Tell me what it's about.
And the last one died.
Let's try to get like a picture, like everybody together, like staying over here. Can we do that real quick? Sure. All right. Somebody want to get behind back here? No. Great. Come on, Bob, get up, get up, get up. There you go. There. You can dance right here. No, just sit right here, Bob. All you oh, there you go, man. Okay. Chair. There we go. My scooter, get friendly.
I'll sit on your right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, everybody smile.
Oh, shit, felony.
Oh, wait.
Lens cap's on.
Okay, I think we're good. I'm sorry, I didn't see that picture. It was really sad.
I hope you're not getting everybody to wait too. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll take another one. Hold on. Add a little bit more. All right. I think I got it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're online.
We're online.
But I don't know if you can watch it.
Danielle was watching for this one.